This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DT India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt, viewers, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. 10 people killed and 30 others injured after a vehicle drives into a crowd on New Orleans Canal and Bourbon Street in United States. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico says halt of Russian gas exports via Ukraine will have drastic impact on European Union, adds halt could cost Slovakia hundreds of millions of euros. Bulgaria and Romania fully join European Union's free travel Schengen area. Identification checks at Bulgaria and Romania's land border ceases. India's Union Cabinet approves continuation of Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana and restructured weather-based crop insurance scheme. In a tragic incident in the United States, at least 10 people have been killed and more than 30 others injured after a truck drove into a crowd in New Orleans Canal on Wednesday. New Orleans Emergency Preparedness Agency earlier warned of the incident in the district known as the French Quarter and cautioned people to stay away from the area. Earlier, CBS News, citing witnesses, reported that a truck had crashed into the crowd at high speed and then the driver got out and started firing a weapon, with police returning the fire. In other news, Eastern Europe nations face energy crisis, prompting fears of a harsh winter ahead as Ukraine refuses to renew its 2019 gas transit deal with Russia. Slovakia, Moldova and Bulgaria were among the most affected by these supply drops. Kyiv's immediate neighbor Bratislava has threatened retaliation, saying its government would consider reciprocal measures against Ukraine, such as halting backup electricity supplies if stopped the gas transit. Fico, who has been critical of the European Union's support to Kyiv last week, travelled to Moscow to meet Putin, anticipating a stoppage of the gas flow.
In world politics, it absolutely applies that it doesn't matter whether elephants love or fight. The grass always suffer. I don't want Slovakia to be such grass, as we see these days when the transit of gas through Ukraine is stopped, which will have drastic impacts on all of us in the European Union, but not on Russian Federation.
While Moldova has declared a state of emergency, Transnistria, which is a breakaway pro-Russian region of Moldova, also reliant on the transit flows, has cut off heating and hot water supplies to households early on Wednesday. According to authorities, they do not know how long such a situation would last. Bulgaria, on the other hand, on its part, has confirmed its readiness to provide Moldova with gas supply assistance. Bulgarian Energy Minister announced that both sides signed a memorandum on crisis response cooperation in the energy sector. Almost a third of the Russian gas sold to Europe was transported via Kyiv's territory. The remainder is transported via a pipeline under the Black Sea to Bulgaria, Serbia and Hungary, or else by shipments of LNG. The European Commission has played down the impact of a halt of Russian gas exports to Europe via Ukraine, saying the stop was expected and that the bloc was prepared for it. A spokesperson for the European Commission said the European gas infrastructure is flexible enough to provide gas of non-Russian origin to Central and Eastern Europe via alternative routes. The spokesperson added that it has been reinforced with significant new LNG import capacities since 2022. Well, staying with more news from the region, residents from Romania and Bulgaria can now travel freely in the Schengen area, ending a 13-year-old long wait. The combined 25 million residents of both the countries now join nearly 450 million EU citizens who already have the freedom to move around the Schengen zone after land border checks were officially lifted. The duo first joined the European Union 17 years ago. and negotiations to enter the Schengen area, which began in 2011. When the European Commission gave the green light to the countries in December, it marked an important signal to the citizens of the two countries that they could now feel like fully fledged members of EU. Now, the full membership will boost GDP and reduce border wait times. And for better understanding, we are now showing you the map of the European Union on your screens and the Schengen zone after Romania and Bulgaria joined the zone. The Schengen zone was first established in 1985 and now includes 29 countries, most of which are EU nations, as well as some non-EU countries, including Iceland and Switzerland. Well, people all over the world are celebrating New Year, ushering in the beginning of the year 2025. Now, here's a sneak peek into the celebrations. We begin with London, which rang in the New Year with a spectacular fireworks display on Wednesday. River Thames and city skyline provided a stunning backdrop for the dazzling spectacle as the iconic Big Ben struck midnight. The festivities went ahead despite much of the UK being subjected to severe weather warnings for the coming week, with heavy rain and strong winds due to affected parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. After standing in New York City's Times Square for hours, thousands of revelers cheered in the new year with the annual ceremony of a descending crystal-clad ball. Many had arrived early in the morning for a spot in one of the barricaded pens set up by the New York Police Department ahead of the musical performances by Megan Thee Stallion and Rita Ora. Meanwhile, Brazil also entered into 2025 at 8 a.m. IST. Millions and millions of revelers gathered on Rio de Janeiro's famed Copacabana beach for the celebrations. People were entertained throughout by the performances from musicians such as Caetano Veloso, Maria Bethânia, Ivete Sangalo and Anitta. Concerts were also held at other venues in Rio with at least 17 stages spread across the city. Over in Japan, people flocked to Tokyo's Meiji Shrine on Wednesday and prayed for a peaceful new year. The country went through major tragedies in the beginning of the year 2024, including a massive earthquake that killed more than 500 people and a major airplane crash at the Haneda airport on January 2nd. Therefore, for many this year, the wish is to have a safe and peaceful year ahead. On to neighbouring Nepal, where lakhs of domestic and international tourists flocked on streets of Pokhara to celebrate New Year 2025. With live music being played across the streets on the Fiva lakeside, the road had turned into a large dance floor. Plethora of food shops on the open street in 26th International Street Festival made entry into the new year from previous year all fun-filled affair with food, with music and dance for tourists and tourism capital of Nepal. And the fireworks are out. It's time to sweep out the remnants of last night's party, and it's time for a look ahead. Markets around the world have pretty string year in 2024. The question is that what will 2025 bring in? Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and he's joining me live from Berlin. Lars, Happy New Year to you, and what can you tell us about the issues that the investors are focusing on in their 2025 markets outlook?
Interest rates are another big topic, I'd say. The European Central Bank has hiked up rates last year, and now there's expectations for interest rates to be cut again, possibly as early as spring. Now that would likely bring upon growth, but Eurozone inflation is still a bit high. Now, about a year ago, it was measured at over 9%. Now it stands at around 2.4%. That is much better, and it's in fact just a tad higher than the ECB's declared goal of 2%. But it's still higher. So that makes it really hard to argue for cutting rates. As for growth, most experts expect Germany's GDP to rise between 0.2 and 0.7% during this new year 2025. Much of how things will go here will depend on the geopolitical context, will depend on trade, and especially those trade issues could be tricky to navigate with President Trump in the White House. So most people I have spoken to are actually optimistic for Germany's economy in the new year, but it's absolutely clear still that we are looking at major challenges.
Thank you very much, Lars, for those inputs. And now, in a dramatic twist, senior aides to South Korea's President Yoon Suk Yeol have tendered their collective resignations a day after acting President Choi Sang-mok appointed 2 justices to the Constitutional Court. Yoon's Chief of Staff, Policy Chief, National Security Advisor and Special Advisor on Foreign Affairs and Security, as well as all other senior secretaries, tendered their resignation. Despite the mass resignation offer, acting President Choi has chosen to reject it, stating that the immediate focus should be on bolstering the nation's economy and stabilizing governmental affairs. The aides have repeatedly offered to step down since Yoon's miscalculated attempt to impose martial law early last month, and any decision in the Yoon case will require the agreement of at least 6 judges. South Korean investigators say that they would execute an arrest warrant for Yoon Suk Yeol over his declaration of martial law by the deadline of January 6th. Supporters and opponents of Yoon, who were suspended from office by lawmakers over his attempt to subvert civilian rule last month, have been camping outside the compound where he has been holed up for weeks. The Corruption Investigation Office requested the warrant after Yoon failed to report for questioning a 3rd time, but it has been unclear whether they could execute it, as the Presidential Security Services have previously refused to comply with search warrants. Meanwhile, CIO Chief Oh Dong-boon said on Wednesday the warrant would be executed within the deadline, which is on Monday, 6th of January. He also warned that anyone trying to block authorities from arresting Yoon could themselves face prosecution. And coming on this edition of DD India Live, on the other side, this is what we have for you. Investigators finished extracting data from one of the black boxes from damaged Jeju airplane crash in South Korea. And Emmanuel Macron acknowledges error on early elections in New Year's speech. India's coffee exports cross 1 billion mark for the first time.
The delicate balance between human and animal coexistence has become a growing problem. Finding sustainable ways to coexisting together and thriving in a rapidly changing environment.
Tell them not to panic. Instead, they should just stand completely still and let the lions walk past peacefully. This is how we show respect to the animal and in turn gain its trust.
After the plantation of lemon trees, the elephants stopped entering the fields. They pass by the field boundaries without entering.
Poaching gangs and trafficking gangs that go after these elephants and capture them, things like that. And that's something that we are all up against.
We should try to modify the human behavior through education and awareness.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to some updates from South Korea's plane crash. As the investigations continue into the specific cause of the Jeju airplane crash, authorities on Wednesday have announced that all 179 of those who have died have been identified. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters confirmed the identities of the last 5 victims who had not been previously identified. Country's acting President Choi Sang-mok at a disaster response meeting said the process had finally been completed and that more bodies had been handed over to relatives so that they could hold funerals. Victim families will for the first time be taken to the site to pay their respects later in the day.
Identification of all 179 victims were completed overnight. The bodies of victims were transferred to their family members, and funeral services have started after the bodies of victims arrived at funeral halls. Currently, South Korea's investigators, along with the US National Transportation Safety Board and manufacturer, are conducting a joint investigation of the cause of the accident. The cause of the accident will be revealed by comprehensively analyzing and reviewing detailed investigations of the aircraft, fuselage and black box.
사고 원인이 밝혀질 것입니다.
Meanwhile, South Korea's Transport Ministry says that flight data recorder of the ill-fated plane will be sent to United States for analysis. Investigators probing the Jeju air crash have extracted the initial data from one of the Boeing 737-800's black boxes. According to the Deputy Minister for Civil Aviation, Jo Jong-won, the initial extraction has already been completed for the cockpit voice recorder, and experts are still determining the method to extract data from the second black box, the flight data recorder. Well, in a rare moment of contrition of sorts, French President Emmanuel Macron has recognized that this decision to call early parliamentary elections in June had created more political instability in the country. Macron shocked the nation halfway through 2024 by calling early elections a gamble that backfired when voters delivered a hung parliament with a big increase in far-right lawmakers, diluting Macron's power. In a televised address ahead of the New Year celebrations, Macron said the dissolution caused more divisions in the assembly than solutions for the French people.
I must acknowledge this evening that my decision to dissolve the French National Assembly has brought more instability to the Assembly than solutions for the French. If I decided that dissolution, it was to give you back the flow, to regain clarity and avoid the inaction that was looming. But lucidity and humility lead me to recognize that, at this time, this decision leads to more instability than serenity, and I take my responsibility.
Et menace notre sécurité, notre unité, notre économie.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh chaired a high-level meeting with the top officials to review progress on key defence initiatives. Ministry of Defence decided to observe 2025 as the year of reforms. Well, the key focus areas include, let's take a look, enhancing jointness and integration initiatives and facilitate establishment of the integrated theatre commands. Also focus on new domains such as cyber and space and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, hypersonics and robotics, to develop a shared understanding of operational requirements and joint operational capabilities through inter-service cooperation and training. Acquisition procedure needs to be made simpler and time-sensitive to facilitate swifter and robust capability development, facilitate technology transfer and knowledge sharing between the defence sector and civil industries, promoting public-private partnerships by improving ease of doing business. Besides this, focus on collaboration across various stakeholders in the defence ecosystem, position India as a credible exporter of defence products, fostering research and development and partnerships between Indian industries and foreign original equipment manufacturers for knowledge sharing and resource integration, ensure the welfare of veterans while leveraging their expertise, instill a sense of pride in Indian culture and ideas, fostering confidence in achieving global standards through indigenous capabilities while imbibing best practices from modern militaries that suit the nation's conditions. In its first meeting of 2025, the India's cabinet, has chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 1st of January, introduced key measures aimed for welfare of farmers. Giving information about the cabinet decisions, Union Minister Vaishnavi Vaishnav said the allocation for Prime Minister's crop insurance scheme has been increased to more than rupees 69,000 crore. He also said that a separate fund of rupees 800 crore has been constituted for innovation and technology.
आज सबसे बड़ा एक फैसला लिया गया कि प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना, a scheme which has really made a big difference in farmers' lives, उसका enhancement, उसके allocation को enhance किया गया, 69,515 करोड़ किया गया. साथ ही साथ एक 800 करोड़ रुपीस का फंड क्रिएट किया गया है, जो कि फंड फॉर इनोवेशन एंड टेक्नोलॉजी बेसिकली किसानों के संबंधित मामलों में टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके और स्पेशली इंश्योरेंस में, बीमा में फास्टर असेसमेंट हो. क्रॉप डैमेज अगर हुआ है, एडवर्स वेदर के कारण कोई प्रॉब्लम आई है, तो उसका असेसमेंट फास्ट हो, क्लेम सेटलमेंट फास्ट हो और टेक्नोलॉजिकल ट्रूथ से डिस्प्यूट्स में कमी आए.
The Cabinet has also approved a special package for companies manufacturing D-ammonium phosphate fertilizer. This initiative includes financial assistance in addition to the existing subsidies for DAP producers. The Cabinet decision will ensure that farmers will continue to get D-ammonium phosphate fertilizer at Rs 1,350 per bag of 50 kg. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote on social media platform X, and I quote, "The Cabinet decision on extending the one-time special package of D-ammonium phosphate will help our farmers by ensuring DAP at affordable prices," unquote. The Uttar Pradesh government has made extensive arrangements to ensure Mahakumbh 2025 is a memorable and divine experience for all. For the past few months, an army of workers have been diligently channeling the rivers, widening roads and levelling the ghats to transform the city in anticipation of one of the largest religious events in the world. Additionally, the government has introduced an artificial intelligence powered chatbot, Kumbh Sahayak, to assist pilgrims with navigation, cultural information and travel updates. And in the run-up to the Grand Mahakumbh 2025 that begins in Prayagraj of Uttar Pradesh on 13th of this month, a grand procession by Sri Shambhu Panchayati Atal Akhara made the atmosphere electrifying. Accompanied by traditional music, fanfare, the royal procession entered the Mahakumbh Mela premises, showcasing its spiritual and cultural significance. Devotees were blessed with darshan of Lord Ganesha's idol central to the procession. Renowned Prayagraj artist Rajendra Tiwari also carried the symbolic Amrit Kalash on his head, inviting people to participate in Mahakumbh 2025 and promoting the message of keeping the Ganga river clean and pristine. Traditionally a tea exporter, India is making significant strides into the global coffee export market. Total coffee exports during the current financial year up to November has crossed $1 billion mark for the first time. According to data from Centre for Monitoring Indian Economy, India's coffee exports rose to record high of $1,146.9 million between the April and November in financial year 2024 as compared to $803.8 million during the same period last year, registering a surge of 29%. This figure is nearly double the exports during the same period in financial year 2021, which stood at $460 million. The sharp growth is partially attributed to a surge in robust coffee prices, which account for over 40% of the global production. Hailing this achievement, the CEO of the Coffee Board of India, Dr. K.G. Jagadisha, has said that India is all set to end the year on a higher note in terms of exports.
April to November, we already achieved $1.15 billion worth coffee exports, which is, I think, a new record. And by the year end, government has given for this year $1,412 million USD export. Out of that, 81% we have already achieved now, and what we have achieved so far itself is a record. But the end of the year, we will be achieving a new record in terms of coffee exports. Thank you.
Let's take a look at some other stories making news today. Well, tickets for the 2025 Republic Day Parade and Beating Retreat will go on sale starting January 2nd. They can be purchased online via the Amantran portal and application or at designated counters with an original photo ID card. Millions gathering at the Jayastham in Pernapata in Pune to honour the valiant soldiers of the Maha Regiment who fought bravely in 1818 battle. Prominent leaders including Union Minister Ramdas Athavale, Prakash Ambedkar, Anand Raj Ambedkar and Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar paid rich tributes to the martyred heroes. Holy Shrine of Vaishno Devi in northern India's Jammu and Kashmir witnessed a massive surge in devotees on New Year's Day 2025. Thousands of pilgrims from across the country and beyond gathered at the sacred site seeking blessings and marking the year with faith and devotion. Indian pacer Jasprit Bumrah has gone past R. Ashwin's record by becoming the highest ranked Indian test bowler in the ICC rankings history. The Indian pace Spearhead has secured 907 points in the test rankings, surpassing Ashwin's 904 rating points achieved in December 2016. Bumrah finished 2024 with 71 wickets to his name in the longest format. His stellar performance in the ongoing Border-Gavaskar series against Australia has yielded him 30 wickets and helped him consolidate his lead as #1 test bowler in the recent rankings. Indian Grandmaster Ramesh Babu Vaishali has clinched a bronze in the women's section of the World Blitz Championship in New York on Tuesday. She capped another strong performance by the Indian chess players after stalwart Koneru Humphrey bagged title in the rapid event. Vaishali defeated China's Zhu Zhaina by 2.5 to 1.5 points in the quarterfinals before losing semi-finals. Vaishali had qualified for the quarterfinals by topping the standings with 9.5 out of possible 11 points. She was the only Indian player in contention for a medal. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We're going to be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.